Chapter 13. The Presentation. Captain Barnacle stood in front of the large metal doors. It was the big day. Not for him, specifically. Speaking in public was something that came naturally. To him, this was normal protocol. No, it wasn't his big day. He turned towards the medic, who was standing right beside him. It was Peso's. The penguin drew deep, shaky breaths. Captain Barnacle's expression softened. "Easy there, Peso," he encouraged. "We've had a lot of practice. This will be easy." "Yeah," Peso squeaked. Captain Barnacles wanted to say more, but everyone was already inside. They did all that they could. It was time to go. He put his paw on the doorknob. "Let's do this." Line break. When the captain opened the door, Peso felt as if his heart stopped. Everyone was sitting behind tables, talking. But now those words died down, and they all looked at him. Staring. "Ah, there's the creatures of the hour." Inkling came towards them on his tentacles, smiling. The captain had told the professor about joining the presentation, so as to not cause confusion. Peso was relieved by that. "Sorry that we're late," Peso apologized. "They stayed outside the door longer than they should have." "Not at all," Inkling replied. "It was just a few minutes anyway." It was true. The clock on the wall said 12:03. Peso stared at it in surprise. It had felt like an eternity. Inkling directed them to the front of the room, which had been converted to a classroom of sorts. There was a white board in front of the room, and there were folding tables and chairs where the crew members sat. In front of each crewmate was a small package of supplies for the workshop. On the side of the room were extra packages, just in case the supplies ran out. Peso walked toward that wall, away from the whiteboard. Upon their agreement, Captain Barnacles offered to go first and say the introduction. He stood in front of the group in an at-ease position, calmly looking at everyone. Peso couldn't even bring himself to look at the other crew members, to see what their facial expressions were. He only focused on the captain's voice. "Hello. Many of you have met me over the past few days, but I will introduce myself again. I am Captain Barnacles. The Octonauts medic, Peso," he directed towards the penguin, "and I will teach you the basics of first aid. The mission we will undertake will bring us to areas where medical care is extremely rare, if not completely absent. As such, it is crucial that each of us have a basic understanding of first aid, in case an emergency would come into place. To start, Peso will give a presentation of treating basic wounds, as well as how to bandage them properly." Bandaging was the procedure he was most comfortable with, so Captain Barnacles had the idea that they would tackle that first. Peso's flipper twitched, filled with adrenaline. He knew what was about to come. "Peso, if you please." Captain Barnacles stepped to the left, leaving an opening for him to take center stage. Peso took his final deep breath. "Hello," Peso said. He spoke as he walked to where the captain was just at. "Like Captain Barnacles said, we'll begin with bandages. Please open up the first aid kits in front of you and take out the gauze." The Octonauts obliged, doing as they were instructed. Peso's beak turned up slightly. So far, so good. There are two types of gauze. The first one has a soft texture, but instead of its usual white color, it's colored blue to make it easier to recognize. This gauze will be used for land animals, since it is mostly useful in dry environments. We won't need it that much, but it's good to have, just in case of emergencies within the octopod. Now that he started, the scripted words that he practiced over and over seemed to move through his beak, over his tongue, automatically. For the first time, he was able to look up at his audience. He saw the dog, Dashi, giving all her attention to him, paws folded on the table in front of her. He focused his gaze on her friendly face, still too uncomfortable to look at anyone else. The second type of gauze is white and a bit thicker. This will be used for aquatic animals. It was strange, yet sad, to talk like they were definitely going to find hurt creatures. But looking at the current circumstances of the ocean, Peso would just have to learn to deal with it. This gauze is specifically designed for the ocean. It's biodegradable, so it doesn't hurt the environment, and it dissolves after a few weeks. With normal gauze, once the healing period has passed, the patient will have to come to a doctor to take the bandages off. With this, however, we don't have to wait around for the healing period to be completed before we can move to another location. The dissolving gauze will take care of that. And it was all because of Dr. Galen, who invented the dissolvable gauze. Peso wanted to say it out loud, but stopped. He was doing really good so far, and he didn't want to mess it up by saying anything outside the script. "For now, please take out the blue, the land, gauze." While the crew did so, Peso went to the table reserved for the presenters. Captain Barnacles joined him, and they each took out gauze for themselves. "There should be a round, hollow tube next to your first aid kits," Peso said. He took his own and held it up for everyone to see. "We will use these to practice on. You can imagine them as a broken arm or leg, or the body of a small fish. Of course, each species will be a different body size, but the principles will be the same." Peso wondered if focusing so much on first aid would be necessary for the others. He would be the one focusing on healing, after all, but he figured that it would be better safe than sorry, especially if he was hurt. Or worse. A picture flashed in his mind, burning away all his calmness. He was in the bottom of the ocean, stuck between rocks, leg broken. He was running out of air, drowning. In the room, Peso felt his throat tighten. He forced himself to snap out of it, but it was too late. He was frazzled. He forgot the lines entirely. Stupid penguin! Why did he let his mind wander? He shouldn't think about worst-case scenarios like that. Peso could see the Octonauts' stares. They pierced through him. He forgot how to breathe. What was he going to do The first step you need to do, Captain Barnacle stepped in, is to survey the injury and check how much damage there is. Peso sucked in a breath. He looked over at the captain. The polar bear smoothly took over, saying the lines as if it was planned for him to say this section of the presentation. Peso took in another, slightly calmer breath. Flappity flippers, he was glad the captain was here. As Captain Barnacles continued the presentation, wrapping gauze around the tube as an example, Peso was able to calm himself down. He was even able to mentally recite the lines that Captain Barnacles was about to say. Now, everyone try to wrap the bandages around the tubes just like I had done. Peso and I will walk around and check your progress. If you have any questions, please ask either of us. Wow, it was already the workshop portion of the presentation. Of course, he and the captain will have to teach other first aid techniques, but he didn't expect the presentation to progress this quickly. Peso began to walk around as the Octonauts got to work. Dashi, Tweak, and Shellington were doing well. The professor used his multiple arms to his advantage with the exercise, finishing before anyone else. The Vegemals were having a bit of trouble, but the captain was helping them out. But Quasi was moving his arms wildly, this way and that, covering the tube haphazardly. There was no rhyme to his movements, no rhythm or reason, and the bandages did not cover the whole tube. If the tube was an actual creature, he would be missing parts of its flesh. All in all, he was doing it wrong. Very wrong. Peso stood where he was, fixed in place. He couldn't go to where Quasi was. It was bad enough to be in close proximity with the pirate. To talk to him, and actually correct him, that would be a disaster. The captain would get angry with him. Peso couldn't afford that. Who knows what the pirate would do if angered? Peso looked behind himself and frowned. The captain was still with the Vegemals. They were a big crowd. He was working with them one by one. Maybe Peso could ignore Quasi and just help Captain Barnacles with the Vegemals. And if he played his cards right, the captain would notice the pirate and automatically teach the cat after the Vegemals were done. Then Peso wouldn't have to do it. Yeah, that was a good plan. Peso waddled towards the Vegemals, but he couldn't reach 2 steps without the pirate's voice reaching him. Oi, what about me? Peso whirled around faster than an eye could blink. Quasi sat there, staring back. The medic couldn't read his expression, but Peso's blood pressure rose anyway. You checked with the other crew, but not me yet. The pirate pushed his half-covered tube slightly forward for the penguin to look at. How did I do? Quasi wasn't yelling, but his tone was rough. Did Peso offend him? Is that how the pirate usually talked? Peso didn't know how to respond. Quasi frowned. Hey, I'm talking to you. Think, say something. Peso swallowed. You're doing really well. Peso tried to smile as casually as he could. Is that so? Peso nodded profusely. Please let this be over. Thanks, me hearty. Quasi stopped looking at him, bringing the tube back to himself. No problem, Peso replied, then turned away, making a beeline straight to the Vegemals. Peso let out an inconspicuous breath. It was over, thank goodness. But as he thought about what just happened, his expression changed. Surprisingly, sorrow started to rise within him. He didn't even have the guts to tell the pirate that he was wrong. Peso had to lie to please him. Peso forced himself to shrug it off. Better to tell Quasi what he wanted to hear than get a knife to his throat. If Peso was to be in the same crew as the pirate, it would have to be this way, whether he liked it or not. With that last thought, Peso reached the captain and focused on the task at hand. He had a presentation to finish. Line break. Quasi wasn't stupid. He had seen the medic's stare of disapproval, the way he tried to ignore him, the way Peso tried to cover his terror with a smile. Quasi had seen his bandages in comparison to everyone else's. He knew that his own wasn't that good, even though he tried his hardest to do it right. He actually hoped that the medic would give him a few pointers. But Peso lied to his face, and it made him angrier than he could imagine. Peso and the captain were presenting the next first aid procedure, but Quasi couldn't focus. He kept staring at his bandage-covered tube, fuming. Was Quasi really that unapproachable? Because he was a pirate, that all of a sudden he was a monster that had to be ignored all the time? He didn't even do anything wrong. Quasi's heart sank. Regardless, Peso still reacted that way. Could somehow something be wrong with him? No! Quasi clenched his fist, trying to wrench out that cold feeling that struck through his gut. There wasn't anything wrong with him. It's all Peso's fault. Peso was the one who was acting like a jerk. Peso was the one who's in the wrong. It's not Quasi's fault if Peso couldn't handle pirates. As ticked off as Quasi was, he wasn't going to kill Peso, like everyone probably expected him to. Far from it. It wasn't in his nature. Of course, just a normal clobbering would be good enough, but Quasi didn't think that was needed either. Peso was too much of a pansy to handle that. Besides, Peso would become even more afraid, so that wouldn't help. No, Quasi was more civilized than Peso thought. If Peso wanted to stay away from him, then the pirate would oblige. Quasi didn't have to deal with Peso's delusions.